All right, this first skill is just some vocabulary. I want to make sure that you understand the words that we're going to be using to describe expressions. So the words are terms, factors, and coefficients. So terms are things that are added together. So if we have an expression like this, right? We have this long expression here, 5x to the fourth, um, minus 2x cubed plus x squared minus x plus 9. All right. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms in this expression. All right. And the first term is 5x to the fourth. All right. Now, then we have a minus 2x cubed. But remember that subtraction is really just adding the negative. Okay, so I could change that into plus a negative 2x cubed, which means that the second term of this expression is a negative 2x cubed, right? And then we have an x squared, and then we have another term, which is a subtraction. So I can change that. I can always change that into adding the negative. So what is that? The fourth term is a negative x, just a negative x. And then finally, we have a constant 9. All right, so those are the 5 terms in that expression. All right, so terms are things that are added together. But remember that we can change subtraction into addition. And so the negative is included in the term. All right, factors. Factors are things that are multiplied together. All right, so in that previous expression, the first term was 5x to the fourth. All right. But we can break that down into a multiplication, 5 times x times x times x times x, right? Because x to the fourth, that exponent just is a shorthand for repeated multiplication. So if we break this down into its factors, it's 5 times x times x times x times x. All right. So those are all factors of 5x to the fourth. All right. Now, if we have a term like a negative x, there's a little bit of a hidden negative 1 there, right? So this is the same as negative 1 times x. So we could say that the factors of negative x are negative 1 times x. Okay. Coefficients. Coefficients are non-variable factors in a term with a variable. Okay, so these are constants, all right? So they're non-variable factors. And for example, in the term negative 2x cubed, negative 2 is the coefficient of the x cubed. Okay, it's the coefficient of that term. Negative 2 is the coefficient of that term. The coefficient of x squared, now because this is really the same as 1 times x squared, right? The coefficient of x squared is 1, right? So sometimes there's a little bit of a hidden coefficient there. The same way with negative x, right? Negative x is really negative 1 times x, right? So we can say that the coefficient of negative x is a negative 1. All right. The coefficient can also be a fraction. All right, so if we have something that looks like 4x squared all over 3, that's just 4 times x squared divided by 3, we can rewrite that as 4/3 times x squared. And so the coefficient of 4x squared all over 3 is just 4/3. All right, so let's take a look at this first example and try to practice those skills. All right, so the first example, we've just given an expression, 5x cubed plus x squared minus x over 6 plus 7. So first question is just how many terms are in this expression? Well, we can just count, right? We got 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. 4 terms in this expression. All right. So remember, terms are things that are added together, and I can change this into plus a negative x over 6. So that counts as a term. All right. What is the first term of this expression? Well, the first term, if this in the order that it's written, the first term would be 5x cubed. What are the factors of the first term of this expression? Well, I kind of already did this one, or something very similar up above, right? So 5x cubed just means 5 times x times, oops, times x times x. All right, so 5 times x times x. That's how we would break it down into factors. Now, there are other ways we could break this down into factors. We could call this 5 times x squared. So x squared is also a factor of 5x cubed. All right, but these are kind of like which we'd consider maybe prime factors of that first term. All right, what's the coefficient of the x squared? Coefficient of x squared in this expression. All right, so here's our x squared term. Doesn't look like there's any coefficient, but remember that we can always write this as 1 times x squared. So the coefficient of the x squared term is just 1. And the last question here is, what is the coefficient of the third term of this expression? All right, so let's identify the third term of this expression. So let me just circle it, I guess. Here's the third term of the expression, right? We got plus a negative 6 over x. And what is the coefficient of that? Now I can write negative 6 over x as negative 1/6 times x. So the coefficient of this third term is negative 1/6. All right, so practice with this next problem, and I'll meet you in the next video.